or the Constitution, you could go to a temple in D.C. where you can see these documents. Yes?
It's very good as a temple, it's just very funny. Yeah.
I want to actually see images. So, I mean, you could go to temples in D.C. and see these kinds of things very clearly aimed at making you feel this is sacred. This is a sacred thing. So you see what both Mill was doing and Auguste Comte was doing is trying to replace the traditional religions with the scientific. This is science. There's no conflict, right? This is what's important to our state, right? And we should honor that. If you visit France, there is what's it called? I can't remember. The Dome. So you could go and you could see, well, I don't care. Sure. But you could go there and you can see this beautiful building which has all sorts of war memorials for the battles and things for Napoleon. And the outside and the exterior is absolutely, there it is. So it always interests me when people say, we don't have a state religion. You do have a state religion. Separation of church and state. That doesn't really...
It just sounds like they're describing nationalism.
Well, this is when it was invented.
Cool.
I mean, if you think about it, this is, the Romans built arches and things, but the whole idea of kind of this thinking of your country with nationalistic fervor, being a patriot and so on, that's actually about this time that whole process was invented as a replacement for that. There's a contemporary philosopher named Martin Marty.
I like his parents named him Martin. Why?
I wasn't there. Obviously, he's much older than I am, so it's not my fault.
Terrible. No, it's so cute. Marty.
Hey, now he is the dean of American, religious scholar, and he's written about our state religion.
It's not as bad as when you're a kid, like Cassius or Northwest. Yeah.
I love Northwest. I think it's so cute.
Like if it didn't mean what it meant, like it'd be cute. Have you seen those TikToks? Like people
So-
out
So
words
if you're
that aren't
curious
names, but if they were names, that would be cute.
about religion as a state religion, he's the scholar to look at. We've got some fascinating stuff on him. But back to John Stuart Mill again. Following Harriet Taylor, he is also very interested in women's liberation. And in fact, the laws do change during that time period. Right? He's the one that says, hey, we're ruled by a woman, guys, right? That's kind of a basic John Stuart Millism.
So that was in the 1800s?
Yes.
In England, right?
Yes. So a significant event, if you like timing things this way, is 1859. He publishes On Liberty. that's the same year that Charles Darwin publishes the
Origin of Species?
The Origin of the Species. And by the way, it's also, and their birthdays, this is kind of cool. Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Charles Darwin's birthday are the exact same day, same year. Which is, by the way, every year on their birthday, we have a conflict here in town. Because there are two events. There's the event at the university where they're celebrating Lincoln, and there's an event at usually Barnes and Ignobles where they're celebrating Charles Darwin. So they have Charles Darwin Day and they have Lincoln birthday. And you know, they always arrange things so you can't go to both. So you know, you're almost announcing your political affiliation by which of these things you go to, you know, because of course the Lincoln, oddly, the Lincoln celebration is a very conservative event, whereas Charles Darwin's birthday is thought of really as a very liberal event because, well, evolution bothers the heck out of a lot of people, basically. So that's kind of interesting. So 1859, pretty interesting. And by the way, Felix Mendelssohn was born. If you like music, anybody like music? We've asked this before. Felix Mendelssohn, who gives us that other wedding march, right? You know, so when you think wedding march, the first one you think of is dun dun da dun, dun dun da dun, dun dun da dun. Right, that's Wagner, and the one that you associate with Felix, which by the way is Latin for happy. Felix, so that's pretty good. Mendelssohn.
Felix is a cat name.
Yes.
It's always like Crumpet or like Sir. Yeah. Sir Crumpet. Yes, Sir Crumpet Felix the Third. When I get a cat, I'm gonna name it that.
So I'll just. So this is the other one.
I feel like it's way too triumphant.
Pardon?
Oh, okay. It starts out so triumphant. It's a fanfare.
Well, it is triumphant. He actually got her to say yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just
I
amazing.
bet this was a pop instead of P17. Or whenever it came out.
It's currently a
So,
You couldn't really elicit a music unless you had a band.
but so
What if-
Felix
what if I didn't
Mendelssohn,
have a band?
Charles Darwin, and Abraham Lincoln. Same birthday month, same birthday year. Felix Mendelssohn died the youngest. Lincoln died rather young, oddly, because he liked going to plays. Okay, that could have been funny, or sad, depending, you know, on your
It was
sense
the
of humor.
silence.
But Charles Darwin lived to a ripe old age, because he took evolution to the next city. I suppose. All right. So what else is interesting about John Stuart Mill? He was a parliamentarian, trying to push through liberal laws. They were liberal at the time and thought of as liberal, although today they're rather conservative. So liberalism has certainly changed, and you know the word means different things. Keep in mind that Hegel's system still works, even if you don't feel like you know everything at any one time. The system continues to be a great method of explaining everything from how societies clash, different groups in societies clash, different ideas clash, different individuals clash over things. I mean, the whole process of the way things dialectically interact with one another, and you get this kind of pendulum swinging process, is really what Hegel's system gives us, right? he does feel, that there is a general direction to history, and I mentioned that as kind of a movement towards freedom politically for Hegel, right? So in fact, in one of his books, he says that America will be the country of the future, where freedom will take its next step. Although he was generally in favor of a limited monarchy or a constitutional monarchy. He thought that was probably the best kind of government, because if you get a democracy where the people actually get to vote for their best interest, you'll have chaos. Whereas if you have a monarchy, and really the model for this is like the British monarchy, and as we go into a presidential election and we see the kinds of candidates that run for president, we kind of, is this the best example of a person, in the United States that could be running to be the president? How horrible. Notice that also causes a lot of stress in our country, because you end up with people taking sides and becoming really radically opposed to one another, and that creates all that friction that we feel constantly. By the way, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's actually democracy in action. So if you think of it, from my point of view, we're the example of where all the other countries are going to go. So if you think this is tough on us, just wait till you see it worldwide, where everybody's going through this. And one of the main reasons for it is everybody gets to self-publish using the internet and become as popular as people will let them, right? People will actually read your stuff and like you, and spread the word around. And as a result, you get people elected, who think,
Unless we get canceled.
really silly things like the earth is flat, and I mean, we actually had a guy who took a rocket, he made his own rocket and flew it in order to prove that the earth was flat. And you know what happened to him? He's dead.
I don't think it had anything to do with the rocket. I had to write an essay on that guy.
You could?
No, I had to.
Oh, you did? So,
Yeah. He just didn't take off.
oh, well,
Maybe it's a different guy, but there was a guy who built a rocket to prove the Earth is flat, and then when it came down to it, he was like, actually, guys, I'm gonna duck out. I don't really want to do this.
oh, that's not the one I thought. There was one that actually took off in a rocket, and that was like a really dumb thing, unless you have a return plan.
There are so many stupid people, there's gotta be more than one. There's gotta be more than one.
And with our internet capabilities and our social media and so on, all of that stuff is dynamically playing out for us. And it scares a lot of people because they would like things to be a little bit more calm, maybe. But you know what? This is the future, I think. And other countries that are just starting to get into this are in for a surprise.
I have this theory that anything socially or whatever made by humans is inherently flawed.
That sounds like the fall. Hey, Adam, take a bite of this.
Yeah.
That's it. The fall.
Yeah, but well, I just think humans are not as smart as we think we are.
Oh, well, we're smart enough to know that we're not as smart as we think we are.
That's true.
I've been watching Faust, and it's amazing to me just how apropos Faust is. I don't know if you read Goethe's Faust when you were in high school,
I don't
or
think
if you've
so.
read it in college in one of your literature courses. I had to read it, I don't remember exactly when, because I don't even remember that much about it, because it was really boring. But now as an adult, and reading it or listening to it, I'm like, holy cannoli, yeah.
Spinoza.
Holy Spinoza. Yeah, thank you for that. That's great, because wow, that is so me. And yeah, I mean, here's this Dr. Faust sitting with all his books and all his instruments, his microscope and everything, and he's furious with himself because he spent his whole life just doing this. instead of, you know, actually getting out and having a life.
Oh. That's so sad.
And I'm not really in that exact same boat because I've also was in the Army where I sat in a different room with different books. In the dark, usually, you know, with headsets on. Doing this, you know, secret stuff. All right, so how did we get there?